What is up, you guys? As some of you may know, Fuel Fest just dropped their event date for West Palm Beach, which is going to be held on February 25th. And today is December 14th, which gives us about 2 months to prep for the event. Now, my car is by no means a crazy build. I guess you could say SEMA worthy or something that would be interesting unless you guys are into Celicas and whatnot. But I do want to participate in the event and support the cause, support Cody, support Paul's organization in order to at least be ready for Fuel Fest on the 25th. I do have to get some stuff sorted out. So now let's get started on the to-do list so that way we can knock all these out before the day of the event. First things first, we're gonna start off with the interior, and then I'll go out to the exterior and show you guys what I need to fix up. But today I'm actually going to be doing the center console. It looks fine, but down here you can see for somehow the paint had built up right here and made bubbles, so I gotta fix that, smooth some of this out. So I do have the paint to repaint it. Next thing I gotta work on are the side door accents. That side is okay, but on the other side I took the fabric out and then I laid the cherry blossoms over. So this side is really looks bad. I did this kind of wrong, and the other side I did it the proper way. For now I'm just gonna paint it. So that's it for up here, I believe. So aside from the center console and the door cards and the trunk, I don't have the mat laid down. As you guys can see, the center bare tire cover, the wood broke, so I have no way of putting the mat down without it sinking into the center. So for that, I'm going to work out a piece of wood that I can use to cover that up. That way I can lay the mat over flush and hide all the sound deadening and whatnot. So that's for the trunk. So for the interior, we have the center console, the door cards, and the trunk mat is what I have to work on. And that's it for the interior. For the exterior, it's a couple more things and I'll show you guys. So I made this video yesterday, but I have to redo it because the wind noise was so bad. It ruined the audio. So I'll try to do this really quick so that way you guys can move on. But for the exterior, we have the wheels that need to be done. The canards, got to finish those, repaint the entire car, finish the Z-Tune fenders, and finish up the rear lip because I was in the process of cutting this up. So I have to cut this off. I have to cut this middle section off and remount the ends of the lip. All right, so let's get started on the center console. I'm gonna give a brief overview of how to remove this for you guys that need to remove one and have never removed one yourself. It's fairly straightforward. You literally just need a screwdriver and that's it. So first things first, you wanna take off the analog AC knobs. If you guys have the digital AC with the buttons, I'm not sure how to remove that one. You'd have to look up another guide or try to do it yourself and figure it out as you go. But for those of you who have an analog system, you want to remove the knobs first. And it should look like that when you're done. And now you want to pull up. The way that I do this part is kind of stick your finger in between the dust boot for the e-brake. Stick your finger under here and pull up on it. Don't be scared, it just pops out. And that removes just like that. So for the shifter boot, it is held underneath by these little tabs. It is super easy to pull off. You kind of just wiggle it, pull it off in one direction like this, and slide it out just like that. Or you could also, if you want to do it the other way, you could remove the shift knob and then pull the boot out and then remove it separately from the plastic then. But it's up to you. I just remove it like this. It's a little bit easier. That way you don't have to remove the shift knob. So when you go to remove this, it does have a connector in the back for the cigarette lighter. You're going to want to remove that right here. So it does have a clip right here. You want to push down on it and pull out. Try not to pull it by the wire. And it comes out just like that. Oops. And it's out. Mine came with a coin tray. You're also going to want to remove the coin tray. Just set it aside. Careful not to drop the coins. If yours does not come with the coin tray, I'm not sure how it comes really, but that should be it. So that's it for this one. So now for this is where you're gonna need the screwdriver. There's 2 screws right here and there's 2 behind the knobs. So you're just gonna want to unscrew those. So now once you've got all the screws removed, you just want to pull towards you on the center console. Be careful not to tug too hard. You don't want to break the center console. Right here are like your weakest points. So when you're pulling it towards you, you don't want to really give it a lot of force. Just slowly add more and more force until the top pops off. And once the top pops off, then you're good to go and you can remove the whole thing like that. And as you guys know, there is a center clock up here. So just look behind the console and you should see the plug for the center clock. So here's the plug and there's a tab on the top. So you just want to squeeze that down and pull out like that and you're good to go. Now this mat is glued down with double-sided tape from the factory. So if you guys remove this, just be careful. Because like I said, it does have the double-sided tape. Being that I had already painted this once and the inside is now black instead of the dark gray that it used to be, I'm not going to bother in removing the mat. I'm just gonna, when I paint this again, I'm just going to sand the outside and paint it with the lid closed. Now there are screws back here to take out the clock, because you're going to need to take out the clock before you paint it, because you don't want to paint over your clock. So if you flip this over, there are 3 screws. One at the top and 2 on the bottom, one right here and one right here. You just take those out. And once you have those screws out, you just pull back on the clock and it comes right out. And there you go. I will say though, for future reference, when you remove it, even if the car has the battery of the car hasn't been disconnected, when you disconnect the clock, the time will reset. So just make sure you set your clock back to where it was before, or the time that it is at the moment, because it will reset when you unplug it. So that's it for this part. Now it's good to be sanded. Here is the cigarette lighter. You do have to remove this as well once you paint it, so you won't have to paint your cigarette lighter, but it's fairly easy. All right, so I couldn't do that with one hand, so you are going to need both your hands, but I just kind of loosened it up a bit and it slides out like this. There you go. And now the last thing to do is to take off this metal ring. You just loosen it like a bolt, and this is what holds the cigarette lighter in. So there you go. And then this here is a casing, so this is going to slide back out, and that goes off just like that. And then the cigarette lighter itself goes out from the front. And now the only thing left is this black plastic ring. Okay, so this is not coming out easily. It usually just pops out, but I guess because I painted it and then I screwed this back in, it probably dried with the paint, so it's stuck in there. That's okay. I'll just take a flathead to the edge and pry up on it. And now the last thing to do for the bottom part of the center console is, if you don't want to risk painting over this when you're painting this part, the whole harness is clipped in, so you can just push out the clip. And that's it. Now your plastic center console trim is good to go. You can sand it, paint it, whatever you need to do. And then of course the installation process is the reversal of the removal process. And if you guys need help, I will help you guys in that section too. I'll put a quick guide on how to do it and how to reinstall it as well. But right now I'm going to take these out, sand them down and repaint them, and hope that they come out good, because I do not want to redo this. This is going to be the 3rd time that I paint this stupid console. All right, so I finished sanding down the plastic trim. Now I'm going to get ready to paint it. And the paint that I chose is this weird, well, I won't say weird, but it's this pretty cool dark gray metallic color. This almost looks like the factory gray trim color, except with added metallic flake. I didn't want to do all black again because it does kind of make the interior dull. So here's the first light coat of color. It does, like I said, look like a very dark gray metallic charcoal color. Looks pretty nice, and that's just the lightest coat. Spraying over a white base, it does look like it would take more than a couple of coats to cover that. But just a quick tip, if you guys are putting the center console back in and you don't want to touch the paint, put the clock in first. So if you use the clock, you don't have to touch the paint. Just line it up with the clips, push the top in like that, and then you can use the two spaces behind the knobs to push the bottom part in, like so. That way you guys don't have to touch the outside that shows and possibly get fingerprints on it. All right, so after you've gotten everything plugged up in the back, to seat this bottom trim piece on, what I would do is open very lightly the lid. Just use your hand completely and push in words like this until you feel resistance, because then at that point you need to push in this piece. Now this piece doesn't have any tricks or anything that you can use to push it down, but I would just lightly push it down and it should easily set in place. Just make sure you distribute even pressure like this with your palm over it, because if you try to push down on one section, you'll put too much pressure and then you'll end up leaving fingerprints. So the best thing to do is put even pressure across the bottom. And then once you're done with that and you've screwed in the top piece, obviously before you lay in the second piece, then you can start putting your knobs back in. And I was going to paint the knobs, but I chose not to because the black accent looks pretty nice with it, as opposed to it all being one color. All right, so while I was painting the center trim piece, I went ahead and I did the other side, and I peeled the fabric off and I painted it the same color as the trim piece. So that's how it looks. All right, so now that we've got most, if not all, of the cushion in the back that is glued to the plastic, now we could just go over and sand down the plastic with 180 or 220 or even 320 grit. The lower the grit, the easier it takes off the rest of this, but then you can move up from there if you'd like. I just use the 180 grit, and afterwards I use a primer filler and it fills in the scratches, so you don't have to worry about smoothing down the plastic. Remove as much as you can and then wet sand the rest of the way with 180 to 320 grit. All right, so now that we've got it all sanded down and all the cushion is gone, now we can cover it up and paint it. All right, so here's how I taped it off. I did it this way because it was a little bit quicker, and that way you don't risk getting spray paint all over the place. That way the paint is only controlled to this area. All right, so there we go. There's the second door painted. The paint, if you do a heavy coat, it does look glossy, but then over time when it dries, it looks like kind of a satin color like this, which is pretty nice. I was gonna gloss it over when I did the center console, but the paint dries like a satin color on its own, so I stuck with that. I didn't add any gloss to it, but because it looks really nice. But when it's wet and heavy, it looks glossy. So if you want a satin finish, just leave it like as is and let it dry on its own. But if you want a glossy finish, then I would recommend adding a gloss clear coat over it. But me personally, I like the satin look better. It matches with the original, the OEM plastic, as opposed to being glossy and look out of place. All right, so now we're done as far as the front driver's area, the center console, and the doors. So now all that's left to do is the trunk, and that's it for the interior, I believe. And then I'm gonna try to get different colored harnesses before the event. Right now I have teal, but I want to switch over to pink harnesses, so we'll see how that goes. If you waited to the end of this video, I do have a crazy idea that I want to try. At the moment I do not have racing seats installed in the car, as you can see, but I have a crazy idea. I wonder if I can dye the cloth completely black by removing the seats, removing the cloth, and putting them in the washer with the RIT dye that you use for the clothes. I want to try it. I want to see how it goes. That way you guys can do that on your own car as well, in case you guys have seats that you don't like the color of, so like tan or anything. Or if you, let's say you have tan interior and you plan on converting your tan interior to black, if you can do that with the RIT dye, that would be so much better for you guys, because you could dye the carpets, you could dye the seats, and then all you have to do is just paint the trim and the plastic. So just a crazy idea that I had, because I don't have racing seats and I don't think I would get any anytime soon before the event. My crazy idea, I'm gonna pull the seats off, take the covers off, and try to dye them with the RIT color. I don't know when I'm gonna do the video, but when I do, I'll be sure to film it, I'll post it, show you guys the results. That way you guys can know if it is possible. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time. Thanks.